While Inauguration Day provided a rare glimpse into the world of fashion, it was Bernie Sanders' signature look that stole the show that day and went viral. Our wardrobe choices have changed dramatically over the course of the pandemic. So, is it a testament to the times? And where does that leave the fashion industry? Dr. Lauren DeVita is an associate professor of apparel merchandising at Baylor University, and she is an expert in principles of art and design, merchandise planning, retail trends, fashion forecasting, and apparel quality analysis. We're so glad that you could join us today, Dr. DeVita.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
What has the pandemic done to our sense of fashion? It's almost become an art form, dressing from the waist up. Is fashion facing an existential crisis?
Well, I think what's really important is we clearly define what we're talking about when we mean fashion. Now, the first thing is to talk about trends because we know fashion is trends manifested. And a trend is really just a shift in thought and values. And these shifts in thoughts and values demonstrate themselves through change in consumer preferences and even products. So, what we have seen is a change to just a different set of priorities. And in this case, temporarily, it's comfort because that is the prevailing priority time. So it may not look like what we expect fashion to look like. It may not look like runway couture, but it is for example, it's a set of trends that is popular in the present with a very wide audience, and that's fashion. So it still meets the definition, although it looks a little different than what we're used to.
While clothing sales have plummeted, production, retailers, it seems every sector is affected, but sales of loungewear are up. I assume that includes sweatpants.
Absolutely. In fact, the New York Times did a fantastic article in August of 2020, and it was about the state of the fashion industry. And the title they chose for that article was Sweatpants Forever. And what we're really interested in forecasting is megatrends. And a megatrend is a prevailing thought that is so big that it can take up to 10 years to manifest itself, and it impacts multiple industries. It can impact food, it can impact interiors, as well as our dress and other ways we express ourselves. So, what happened is that we had already been seeing this mega trend of health and wellness, and that was manifesting itself through the increased purchase of athleisure and yoga wear. And what happened is people got really used to that comfort factor through the addition of stretch and ease of care through those wash and wear fabrics. So we were already seeing this shift in priorities to comfort and ease of care. And what has happened is it's really been exacerbated by this. Also, we're seeing a couple of other megatrends in society. One that we've seen is the rise in the importance of environmental awareness. And what has happened previously, because of fast fashion, people were consuming lots of clothing that they really weren't being thoughtful about. And our wardrobes were just getting packed with all these clothes that we don't wear. In fact, some estimates say consumers only wear about 20% of their wardrobe because the rest of it just isn't special, isn't made well, doesn't fit quite right because it is, for lack of a better word, cheap. So also, this is not an environmental way to live. And people were starting to kind of realize this, that it is not good for the environment to treat our clothing as disposable. Another mega trend that we are seeing is the rise in the importance of minimalism. And of course, that was started by Marie Kondo. But all of these popular home organizing shows really advocate only keeping what you absolutely love. And a lot of fast fashion purchases were not made with love in mind. So we've sort of seen this big shift. So we have the desire for comfort, yes. We also have the desire to be environmentally conscious and sustainable. And we have this desire here to be minimalist. Well, that doesn't equal a dramatic increase in fashion purchases. What it does is it results in us cleaning out our closets, which is why one segment of the apparel industry that's growing is resale. ThredUp, The Real, Poshmark, Their sales are currently, as an industry, about 28 billion and growing. And other areas that are growing are companies that are emphasizing transparency in the production process and also able to document their sustainability. So yes, some segments of the fashion industry are being hit very hard. Others, however, are rising to take their place.
Well, to your point, Vogue editor Anna Wintour said this is a real opportunity to look at the industry as a whole, rethink our values, the waste, the consumption, the excess, and what the industry really stands for. That's an interesting statement coming from the head of the world's premier fashion magazine. Is it all about a few good things instead of a multitude of mediocrity?
Absolutely. And the way that the fashion press has started embracing these ideas is very interesting. Just this month, Refinery 29, which is a fashion blog, said make 2021 the year of the capsule wardrobe. And a capsule wardrobe is one in which you have a few key pieces that are of excellent quality and versatile that you can mix and match quite a lot with. And for a fashion magazine to advocate this reduction in consumption is a real reckoning. And the way that fashion companies can respond, there's a few ways. They can have reduced production runs and make fewer items so that we are not overstored or have over merchandised, and they don't have to rely as much on markdowns in that event. And they can also really work on emphasizing uniqueness and special features, things that will really benefit a consumer and help them understand how and why it benefits them. Companies that are able to do that will succeed, but I'm afraid it's not enough anymore to coast just on a logo, and it's not going to be enough to coast on a low price.
Well, there's an old saying that goes way back: when you look good, you feel good. When you feel good, you perform better. We know getting dressed every day, even to work remotely, can help our mindset. Does fashion still matter when you're juggling kids and pets and a household and all this amid Zoom meetings?
Well, you're absolutely right. The way that we choose to adorn ourselves can impact our self concept. And we have seen, even in this highly isolated time, a few trends that have really caught on. And a few things we need to think about. In order for a trend to catch on, it needs to be highly observable. And we used to observe these trends when we were out at the movies, out at restaurants, out at bars, and we could see something like that. I'm going to do that myself. And then the next time we were out shopping, buy an approximation of it for ourselves. This is how fashion spread, appropriation of other people's style that you see. Well, this has been highly limited. So what has happened is that things that are visible from here up have been taking on importance. So we're seeing a rise, for example, in headbands, something that we haven't seen much of, since the Gossip Girl era and before that in the 90s. And they're making a comeback. And the reason those are making a comeback is that they're very affordable. So they have a low economic risk. And also, they have a low social risk. You're not committed to it. If you don't like it, you can just take it off. And they provide an enjoyment risk, or they're a very low enjoyment risk, in that when you see yourself wearing something that makes you feel a little special, you might perk up a little bit. So that is one example of a trend that actually has caught on. Another trend that has caught on is the name of it is from the company Hill House that actually trademarked it because they originated the idea back in 2019. It's the idea of what's called the nap dress. And the nap dress is a dress that, like our lives today, allow us to go from work to home to even sleep if we want. You can wear it to take a nap in. You can also wear it to greet your delivery man at the door. And you can also wear it to be in a Zoom meeting. And in every case, it's socially acceptable. So we're seeing this rise in the attractiveness of sleepwear. And we're also seeing a rise in luxury pajamas. So the fashion industry is always in flux. our purchasing power shifts to various categories. Currently, right now, it's in this attractive, higher end loungewear, sleepwear that we can use in a variety of situations and feel good about ourselves, even if it's just running down with our mask on to pick up some milk at the grocery store.
Now that's versatility. The inauguration actually provided us a refreshing glimpse into the fashion world, and it largely championed unsung, homegrown designers. What do you see for the future of the fashion industry, and how can we help? Does it go beyond taking that online cart through to the checkout?
Absolutely. The really great thing about the inauguration and the night before was that so many Black designers were highlighted. Kamala Harris wore Kirby Jean Raymond, who is the designer for Pierre Moss, and he is a Haitian American designer that is very popular in fashionista segments. But I think it's great because she enabled him to really be recognized by the mainstream. People who were not intimately involved in the fashion industry got to know his name for the first time. At the inauguration, both Kamala and Michelle Obama wore Sergio Hudson, another Black designer. So it's fantastic to see these American creatives being highlighted on the stage. Now, what we need to keep in mind is that publicity is not the same thing as sales, and a designer needs sales to stay in business. And there have been designers in the past that, because of this increase in notoriety by being embraced by a first lady, have had to really grapple with a balance between the demand and not overexpanding their business. Some designers in the past, as soon as they get this initial flux of orders, have overexpanded their operations. And it's very difficult, for example, to be able to keep up with this kind of demand. Another thing that's really going to matter is the affordability of the garments. I can admire some of these American designers as much as possible, but it is, unless their clothing is in my price point, as much as I may like it, I can't actually buy it. So hopefully, for example, Michelle Obama at the inauguration, when she wore the J. Crew ensemble, that was something that Americans were able to grab onto and say, I can appropriate that for myself. Where we will probably see the influence is, everyone was talking about the monochromatic looks we saw. So even if you can't afford a real Sergio Hudson, you can afford a monochromatic interpretation of it.
A remarkable evolution of an industry. Dr. DeVita, thank you so much for your refreshing insights into the world of fashion. We really appreciate your time today.